The first thing Elias Cooper noticed was the silence, not the peaceful kind that usually settled over his stretch of high desert at dawn, but a tight, waiting quiet, as if the land itself were holding its breath, because even before he saw them, he felt that something was wrong. And when he rounded the bend near the cottonwoods by the dry creek bed, he found two boys no older than 10, their thin wrists bound with rough rope, backs pressed against the cracked bark of an old mesquite tree, faces streaked with dust and dried tears, their dark eyes lifted not in anger or fear anymore but in a weary resignation that stopped Elias in his tracks, and for a long moment he simply stood there, hat in hand, heart pounding, because he had lived alone long enough to know that cruelty often wore the disguise of justice, especially out here where people believed survival excused everything, and the sign nailed crookedly to the tree, "Thieves." Let this be a lesson, told him exactly what kind of lesson someone had intended to teach. Elias had been a quiet man most of his life, the kind who spoke little and observed much, a rancher who kept to himself after the war took his younger brother and the years took his wife. And though folks in the nearby town called him strange or distant, they trusted him because he was fair, because he paid his debts, because he never raised his voice, and now as he stepped closer and saw the boy's cracked lips and trembling knees, something old and aching stirred in his chest, a memory of hunger so sharp it once made him dizzy, a memory of being young and helpless and judged by people who never asked why, and without a word he knelt, pulled his knife from its sheath, and cut the ropes clean through, the fibers snapping like dry twigs, and the twins collapsed forward into the dust, coughing, their legs too weak to hold them, and when Elias gently helped them sit, offering his canteen, they drank like men lost in the desert, water spilling down their chins, their hands shaking as if the world itself might vanish if they stopped holding on. Only after they had caught their breath did one of them whisper, "We didn't mean to steal," and the other added, "Our grandmother couldn't stand," and that was all Elias needed to hear, because he had learned long ago that desperation did not make someone bad, it made them human, and as the sun climbed higher, burning away the morning chill, Elias did something that surprised even himself. He told the boys his name, told them they could call him Eli, and told them they were coming home with him, not as prisoners, not as charity cases, but as guests, and when the taller twin hesitated, glancing back at the tree as if expecting someone to appear and drag them back, Elias placed a steady hand on his shoulder and said quietly, "No one's tying you up again," and for the first time since dawn, the land seemed to exhale. The walk to the ranch was slow, the boys limping, unused to kindness, flinching at sudden sounds, but Elias matched their pace, pointing out jackrabbits and hawks, letting the silence fill with something gentler, and when they reached the small adobe house, he fed them warm bread and beans, watched them eat with careful restraint as if afraid the food might be taken away, and listened as they told him their names, Tomas and Inigo, twins born to an Apache family pushed from place to place after their parents died of fever, raised by a grandmother whose legs had failed her long before the boy's spirits did, and when Elias asked where she was, they answered, "In the hills," and he nodded, already planning, because compassion, he knew, was not a feeling but a series of choices, and later that afternoon he saddled his horse, helped the boys up behind him, and rode out toward the rocky ridge where a small, weather-beaten shack leaned against the wind, finding the grandmother inside, proud and frail, her eyes sharp even as her body had weakened, and when Elias explained what had happened, she did not beg or cry. She simply studied him for a long moment and said, "You cut them loose," and when he nodded, she replied, "Then you have already given more than bread," and those words followed Elias back to the ranch, echoing in his mind as days turned into weeks and the boys stayed, helping with chores, learning the rhythms of the land, laughing in ways they hadn't allowed themselves to in a long time, and though whispers spread in town, about the rancher harboring thieves, about boys who should have learned their lesson, Elias never argued, never explained, because he believed that goodness didn't need an audience, yet the unexpected turns came anyway, as they always do, because kindness has a way of challenging cruelty in ways no punishment ever could, and when the baker who had tied the boys to the tree fell ill and his own son went hungry, it was Tomas and Inigo who carried a basket of bread to his door, silent and steady, and when the man recognized them and broke down, ashamed, it was Elias who stood back and watched the cycle of pain crack open into something new. The emotional climax came one winter night when a fire tore through the town's storehouse, threatening to spread, And it was the twins, quick, fearless, guided by the land and the stars, who helped lead people to safety, saving lives that once would have condemned them. And as flames lit the sky, Elias realized that the boys he had cut loose had also untied something inside him, a knot of grief and isolation he'd carried for years. And when spring returned, the town changed too, not all at once, not perfectly, but enough, because people had seen what mercy could do, and they could not unsee it. And in the end, the sign on the mesquite tree fell, weathered and forgotten, while the tree itself bloomed again, its roots deep, its branches wide, a quiet witness to the truth Elias had always known, that a single act of compassion, offered without judgment, can ripple outward, transforming not just the lives it touches, but the hearts that once believed hardness was strength, leaving behind a simple, enduring message, that humanity, when chosen, has the power to set us all free.